Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm in a good mood today. So, yeah, you're going to be the witnesses, the first witnesses, as the defense counsel will receive it. And they'll, of course, immediately notify their clients, as it is Friday news dump. But yeah, this is the bombshell of all bombshells. I, Travis Wayne Goodsell, have single-handedly connected Russia and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and everything the church has been doing, even now, murdering Mormons, to the bidding of Putin. So yes, you guys are privileged. And you'll get to watch what I can do with my little finger. Oh, Bond, you kill me. Told you, I'm in a good mood. So, this is a reading. This is yet another submission of brief. The date today, 23rd of October, on Friday. And yeah, because of the situation of Judge Jenkins still refusing to recuse himself, even after getting the motion, he's just hesitating and delaying after he's already refused to recuse himself and has dismissed my case, requiring a new one. And so I've been doing all this other stuff to try to prevent the end of the world, because this is what I've made the connection to, that the church is involved, directly involved. They are compromised, and I go over it in this submission. And so I need to remember PDF, need to remember to put in herd immunity, yeah, this is a total knockout. Drago is not getting up from this. If you remember Rocky IV. And yeah, this is Goliath's, or yeah, David slaying Goliath. This is Samson knocking down the pillars of the Philistine temple. Bruce R. Can't believe it. He just put building. He knocks down a building and kills more Philistines in his death than in his life. Building? Temple? I mean, that's crucial to the story. The prophecy of the latter days of the Sun King, Samson. So yes, I can go on and on and on and on, as I have in all these videos that I think we're getting nearer to 2,000 now. But yeah, because Judge Jenkins still refuses to recuse himself, as Trump, I've now confirmed, exposing him as having the vaccine. I did the video earlier this morning. It's just unbelievable. She had him. She had his testicles in her hand, and all she had to do was rip them. And she gave up, and she let him out. Oh, God. The very first question, she blew it. God. And then that led to Rachel at the end of it. Oh, God. Never have I been so disappointed in the press. Man. So, here we go. I put in much of the information from the second amended complaint that was rejected because they used Rule 15, I believe it was, to claim that I needed to do a motion, or leave to amend, is what it's called. And so that's what I did the other day and did the video on. In order to get that information, we're doing the brief. And so not everything is from that second amended complaint is in this brief, but here we go. As the plaintiff has been trying to file federal complaints, so if I find anything that refers to amended complaint or second amended complaint or whatever, I need to remove that because this needs to be information. And following Civil Court Pro Se Litigant Guide for cases 219 CV 00711 and 220 CV 00633, and yeah, just don't want to mess this up again. Cause delays that'll force it to be on Monday. The defense counsel and the judges in both cases have been gaslighting the plaintiff with claims that the plaintiff fails to state a claim upon which relief may be granted. If the guide is correct, then the federal judges and the defense counsel are not just wrong, but in violation of the law. If the guide is incorrect, then the federal judges and the clerks of the court are in violation of the law for intentionally leading the plaintiff into a no-win situation against his First Amendment rights. The defense counsel and the federal judges systemically claim the plaintiff must present evidence prematurely before any evidentiary hearing and claim the plaintiff's case is frivolous and full of conspiracy theories. The defense counsel is obviously mistaken by using America's enemies' misinformation and disinformation tactic. This is gonna come up as new information for you, part of the bombshell, so pay attention. Alright. Tactic of creating incorrect definitions of popular words and terms so as to cause confusion and a lack of trust in the truth. A conspiracy theory is a sound, science-based argument about more than one person involved in crime with predictions about expected outcomes. As the defense counsel and federal judges request and keep dismissing the plaintiff's complaints and motions, the plaintiff's evidence is not able to be presented. Missed that in the last reading. To be presented to explain the conclusionary facts. That was a term they've used. The defense counsel keeps referring to Rule 8 as if the federal guide is incorrect, even using the word frivolous, and yet the defense counsel have never followed Rule 8 for their response. And then I put in the Rule 8B, defenses, admissions, and denials. So this is their responsibility, and they're not following it, as they claim I'm not following A. As the defense counsel admits to being clueless to the plaintiff's claims, Rule 8 also provides a remedy which the defense counsel is failing to follow, as they keep motioning for a dismissal with prejudice and constantly being rewarded with by the federal judges. Lacking knowledge or information. Party that lacks knowledge or information sufficient to inform my belief and the truth of an allegation must so state. And the statement has the effect of a denial. So they have to simply put, we know nothing of this matter, so then it would be on me to go to an evidentiary hearing and present my evidence so that they will then know. And then they've already been notified that they needed to know, and so if they can't defend it in the evidentiary hearing, that's on them. In the effect, the defense counsel keeps failing to properly deny the plaintiff's counts, which Rule 8. In effect, the defense counsel keeps failing to properly deny the plaintiff's counsel, which Rule 8 also remedies. Effect of failing to deny an allegation other than one relating to the amount of damages is admitted if a responsive pleading is required and the allegation is not denied. They have not denied anything. They just say, oh, this is all frivolous, motion to dismiss, based upon an insufficient claim for remedy or whatever. They will not address any specifics. They just say, oh, conspiracy theory, fake news, hoax, fake news. That's not how it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to go to the substance. That's what the law requires. The plaintiff will not play the compromised federal judges and the defense counsel's gaslighting game, and will continue to follow the pro se litigant guide, trusting that its format is in compliance with Rule 8A. During the plaintiff's complaint, 219 CV 00711, the defendant assisted in the attack on the United States in using coronavirus as a weapon of mass destruction with the intent to assassinate the plaintiff at the same time. The defendant's CEO, Russell M. Nelson, is a medical doctor who took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm, in quotes, and is the leader of a religious organization claiming to care for the sick and afflicted, in quotes. On 29 January 2020, the defendant released a press statement announcing the donation of PPE to Shanghai, China. This is part of the bombshell, and I've already gone over this in my videos, but you have to watch all my videos and keep up to date on all of them. Because I use a new term in this one I don't think I used in the video the other day. On 13 March 2020, the defendant announced staged closures of their operations. In the defendant's April General Conference 2020, the CEO confessed to having communicated with China back in January 2020 for the purpose of establishing a temple in Shanghai, China. As the White House announced a public health emergency on 3rd February 2020, and the plaintiff served the defendant on 27 February 2020 in case number 219 CV 00711, the defendant's delayed and slowed phased shutdown of operations announced on 13 March 2020 placed Mormons, Utahns, and the plaintiff in jeopardy. Pay attention. Especially, this is 15 pages, guys. We're only at 15 minutes, and I'm on page 4. Especially when the defendant opened back up full operations without approval of a green level, resulting in escalation of infections and deaths and an indefinite prolonging of the viral threat. Pay attention. I can't emphasize that enough. On 20 December 2019, the defendant's presiding bishopric released a video, and I did that video. It was only a couple minutes long, less than a couple minutes, in response to a Mormon whistleblower to the IRS, working for one of over a dozen of the defendant's investment companies. Pay attention. This is how you do research. You assemble all the evidence together, and you create a narrative of what happened. That's a theory. A theory is not fake news. It's not a hoax. It's how you catch criminals and lock them up. Ensign Peak Associates. In it, they discuss the reason for investing and saving money is for a rainy day, in quotes. Apparently, a viral pandemic does not meet the criteria as a rainy day, in quotes, for the defendant. During the plaintiff's complaint, 219 CV 00711, the defendant assisted in the attack on the United States in using coronavirus as a weapon. Okay. Yeah, this is because I was taking the counts from the amended and now I'm putting them in here. So that's why it seems a little awkward. Assisted in the attack on the United States in using coronavirus as weapon of mass destruction with the intent to assassinate the plaintiff for the purpose of tampering with the plaintiff's federal civil case against the defendant. And so they should all recognize much of this, as they'll be tempted to say, oh, he's just copying and pasting onto a brief. You need to pay attention. There's bombshells at the end. During the plaintiff's complaint, tampering with the defendant. The defendant's CEO, Russell M. Nelson, is a medical doctor who took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. I may not. We'll leave it in, so that they can see that I'm putting in the information from the amended complaint into this brief. On 29 January 2020, the defendant released a press statement announcing the donation of PPE to Shanghai. On 13 March 2020, the defendant announced state closures of their operations. On 13 March 2020, the plaintiff listed defendants' co-conspirators in case 219 CV 007, threatened the plaintiff with wrongful lease violation that turned into an attempted eviction of the plaintiff. In the defendant's April General Conference, no, not yet, sort of, partially, no, not yet. The CEO confessed to having communicated with China back in January 2020 for the purpose of establishing a temple in Shanghai, China. As the White House announced a public health emergency on 3 February 2020, and the plaintiff served the defendant on. So yeah, a lot of this is repeated because there were different complaints. Plaintiff's jeopardy of life, liberty, property to prevent the continuance of the plaintiff's case. On 31 December 2019, China publicly announced a coronavirus outbreak, responding to an online viral leak by an ophthalmologist in China who contracted the virus from his patients and later died from it. On 9 January 2020, WHO announced the threat of coronavirus. On 20 January 2020, the CDC announced 3 U.S. airports to begin screening for coronavirus. On 21 January 2020, the CDC announced the first confirmed coronavirus case. On 31 January 2020, WHO announces coronavirus as a public health emergency. On 3 February 2020, the White House declares coronavirus a national public health emergency. On 25 February 2020, the CDC announces the coronavirus will become a pandemic. On 28 February 2020, the first coronavirus case patient came to Utah. On 9 March 2020, the Grand Princess cruise ship docks in Oakland, California, and their remaining coronavirus patients. with their remaining coronavirus. On 11 March 2020, WHO declared the coronavirus as a pandemic. On 13 March 2020, National Executive declares coronavirus a national emergency. Travel ban declared for non-Americans from Europe. Official health professionals have defined the difference between quarantine and isolation required for responding to coronavirus. When a person tests positive for the virus, they must be quarantined at the hospital until 3 negative tests. Technically, wherever they are obtained, but you usually go in to be tested. Those who have come in contact with one who tests positive are to be isolated from human interaction at home until the test results are determined. When outbreaks occur, the place of the outbreak is to be quarantined with all those within the place of the outbreak. As the place of the outbreak expands, so too is the expansion of the quarantine of all those within. Levels of green, yellow, orange, and red are used to determine the threat level of the virus. Quarantines are not to be lifted until the person or the place of an outbreak return to level green. Mask wearing by the public is only when persons must leave isolation to come in contact with the public, to attempt to lessen the likelihood of infecting others. It does not protect the mask wearer from infection from this airborne human transmitter. During the plaintiff's complaint, 219 CV 00711, the defendant assisted in the attack on the United States in using coronavirus as a weapon of mass destruction with the intent to assassinate the plaintiff. The defendant's co-conspirators, Governor Gary Herbert and Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox, are soldiers, i.e. Mormon. Let's make that capital, or plural, of the defendant, placed in the Utah governor's office. And let's put a space on that. On 23 January, there is some overlapping because that's what it was on the amendment. On 23 January 2020, Governor Herbert activated Utah's Division of Emergency Management to monitor impacts of coronavirus. On 29 January 2020, the Utah Department of Health activated the Department Operations Center to prepare for coronavirus. On 28 February 2020, the first coronavirus patient arrives in Utah. On 2 March 2020, Governor Herbert creates the Coronavirus Community Task Force led by Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox. See, they're doing what's necessary to prepare for this. And then something happens. The church gets involved. Let's see, on 3 March 2020, a coronavirus phone hotline was started with 65,000 phone calls. On 6 March 2020, still not happy with this. Okay, sort of. Now it's a little too low. Let's see, 6 March, the state of emergency. On 12 March 2020, Governor Herbert recommends no gatherings of 100 or more persons to take effect on 16 March 2020. On 13 March 2020, Governor Herbert recommends a soft closure, in quotes, of K through 12 schools. On 17 March 2020, Governor Herbert orders the closure of restaurants and bars and limits gatherings to 10 people. So no big birthday party for me. Like I have lots of people who want to be with me to celebrate. On 22nd March 2020, the first Utah death from coronavirus occurs. On 23 March 2020, Governor Herbert extends the shutdown of K through 12 schools until May 1st, 2020. He does a lot of other things on May 1st that we get to. May 1st is I think I do talk about it. So we'll let you wait. A website is established for Utahns to learn about coronavirus through chat feature. On 24 March 2020, Governor Herbert begins Utah leads together, in quotes, task force to maintain the economy over Utahns' lives. See, now he's starting to shift. See, now he's starting to say, I'm getting sick and tired of this. I want it changed. And what happened? On the 27th of February, 2020, the church got served. That I've already talked about previously. And so now Herbert is changing from all the preparations he was doing prior to the church getting served. (26 March 2020), the Utah Department of Health bans all non-emergency medical care of Utahns due to lack of PPE. Remember that PPE? On 27 March 2020, Governor Herbert issues "Stay safe, stay home," with no method of compensating Utahns for lost wages and stay-at-home care and survival necessities. Toilet paper. On 1 April 2020, the state website includes daily updates of coronavirus stats, number of cases, 1,012, number tested, 20,155, number hospitalized, 91, number dead, 7. That's also conference weekend. This whole year was supposed to be dedicated to the first vision. What happened to that? They just did it for conference. Why aren't they still doing it for October? What happened? It has been learned that many Utahns have contracted coronavirus and died, but because they were not tested, they were not counted on the stats. It has also been learned that Utahns who tested positive but did not require a ventilator were released to the public prematurely from quarantine, as Governor Herbert's financial extortion prevented both those who test positive and those who come in contact with those who test positive from continuing to stay safe and stay home as a matter of survival. See what he's done here? He set things in motion to prepare for this, and then all of a sudden the church gets served. And now Herbert is acting contrary to the interests of Utah. I'm going to make sure I emphasize that at the end here. Herbert changed direction after LDS church served. Okay, so that's going to be added. Okay, where are we? On 4 April 2020, Utah's disaster declaration is presidentially approved. And then he goes and the auditor has revealed, I think I talked about it here. On 6th of April 2020, Jesus' birthday, yay! Jesus didn't exist. We are the learning of the Jews. Mormons do not get it. The federal government were confiscating state-purchased PPE. Yay! On 9 April 2020, Governor Herbert issues a travel ban into Utah requiring a new travel declaration form. On 15 April 2021, the governor announced the arrival of PPE from Shanghai, China. So I summed that one up. I'll need to sum up this change in helping Utah after the church getting served. But pay attention. I sum up this at the end. You do not want to miss it. And don't skip this, because you won't know where it is in the end. On 17 April 2020, the state acquired PPE from other sources. On 20 April 2020, a vulnerable populations advisory group is started. Why 2 months late? As the majority of vulnerable adults are now dead. As a reminder, the plaintiffs, 219 CV 00711, explained how the defendant is responsible for getting the plaintiff labeled as a vulnerable adult in the state of Utah. To this date, no one has reached out to care for the plaintiff other than to provide $178 and healthy food in the week. On 22 April 2020, Governor Herbert again changes the slogan to Healthy Together. I need to put Stay Strong. I don't think I put that. Stay Strong Utah. That's white supremacist. It's from Survival of the Fittest. Fit. Alright. 31. Yeah, hold on. Since I stopped to write that down and this went off at the same time, I'll just make the quick change. That'll take a minute. This is season 2 of Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries. It has Arson and Old Lace episode with Amy Smika, who I walked to school with back as a little kid. She's the little girl that was trapped in the apartment under the furniture during the fire, calling for help. And then she got to jump off the building with Joe Hardy, Sean Cassidy. Needed to make sure I had that episode released, because I had it broken up, but big old mess. Alright, so no concern for those of us who are wanting this digitized. And so, yes, you will be hearing this after I've already emailed everybody, just to let you know. Okay. 24th April 2020, Governor Herbert finally forms a multicultural task force subcommittee. According to the 2010 United States Census projections, the racially and ethnically makeup of Utah are as follows: 88.6% white or European, 13% Hispanic, Latino. The thing is that Hispanics and Latinos also have among them those who consider themselves white. And so that puts the white race in Utah over 90%. It's more like 93 to 5%, I believe. And so, yeah. Something like that. see, the racial makeup of West Valley City was 65.37% white. And so the reason why I put these stats, as I go through the others as well, is to show that of the 88.6% whites in Utah, there's only 63.37 of them in West Valley City. West Valley City, therefore, is the major city for those others. Let's see. And so I put in Hispanic or Latino of any race, okay, of the population. The defendant knows the address of the plaintiff. So I just leave it at that, as they started late on taking care of the multicultural persons. On 28 April 2020, Governor Herbert and Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox again changed the slogan to "A mask for every Utahn." The plaintiff reminds that in 219 CV 00711, the plaintiff's life was threatened by his landlord and property manager. The plaintiff had acquired hospital masks during the emergency event and thus was prepared from the beginning of the viral pandemic. In the event, the plaintiff tested positive. Referred to the nature of the case. We need to erase that, don't we? You deleted the... Alright. On May Day 2020, the anniversary of the Illuminati, which the defense counsel believes is a conspiracy theory, in quotes, connected to their client despite the carved-in stone and in bronze evidence. I love that when I put that one in there. Governor Herbert downgrades Utah to moderate risk, allowing the start of a phased reopening. It has been learned that the stats were suppressed and manipulated to maintain new cases to be kept under 200 per day to justify the reopening, rather than establishing the threat level by weekly percentages of new cases to those tested. I need to put in, testing percentages during this time had been, okay, my goodness, how did I miss that one too? Testing percentages during this time had been in the yellow threat level, not green. Again, what is he doing? You don't open things back up, lower the level, but not to green. On 14 May 2020, assisted living facilities were added to the website stats in a separate page, but not included with the state stats. And remember, those not tested prior to were never counted on the stats. Out of the 101 assisted living facilities in Utah, the beginning stats were number of facilities, 97. Number of new cases, 183. Number of deaths, 30. Number of new cases of healthcare workers, 150. On 15 May, it's 15, right? Yeah. Governor Herbert lowers the threat level to yellow, which matched the percentage process they were supposed to be going by. Most of Utah was reopened, as it signaled to Utahns that the coronavirus threat was over. Again, if the light is green, the trap is clean. Ghostbusters. Everybody knows this. You don't open up at yellow. It just means it's getting there. You still have to wait. And he didn't. That week, airport directors across the nation and in Utah were opposing national and state orders to reopen on this date. The Salt Lake Airport director was arrested, accused of child porn possession, allowing the Salt Lake Airport to open for the resuming of the defendant's missionary program, as well as return of tourists to Utah. Randall Berg has never been heard from since, never receiving due process. Governor Herbert also explained his intention of reopening was to get Utahns back to church, in quotes. On 30th May 2020, Governor Herbert declared BLM protesters over the police public execution of an unarmed and in-custody black man as domestic terrorists, and sent out the police in military transportation and weaponry to assault protesters. It has been learned that Governor Herbert takes sensitivity training, but it apparently isn't working. I busted up laughing when ABC 4 News Utah put that video on YouTube. On 11 June 2020, under pressure from Kane County, Governor Herbert again violates health professionals' advice from the beginning and moves Kane County to green without an eradication of coronavirus in the whole state. On 18 June 2020, Governor Herbert turns more counties into green as the weekly percentages rise to orange level. You're green. Oh, okay. On 24 June 2020, after a worker in the governor's office tested positive, Governor Herbert orders mask wearing in state buildings. On 16 June 2020, a Utah government YouTube video was released showing how the stats were manipulated as previously explained. On 20 July 2020, Governor Herbert announces that schools can reopen in the fall if new case numbers can stay below 400 per day. Oh, dear God. It's green when it's orange. On 18 August 2020, Utah schools begin to open for fall semester. Teacher and parent protests have been going on since the 11th. On 21 August 2020, Governor Herbert renews his state of emergency declaration. Within 1 week, yes, I want to cry, school virus infection outbreaks commence as predicted and warned about by health professionals from the beginning. The state of Utah entered into the red level and still rising to this current date. And is still. On 14 September 2020, anti-mask protests begin in Utah as late-night comedy makes jokes of Utahns' absurd reasoning, and national press expose Utah's absurdity as news fact. By refusing to follow professional health advice, Governor Herbert and Lieutenant Governor Cox refused to protect the lives of Utahns and the plaintiff, as well as interfering in the plaintiff's case against the defendant, as Governor Herbert's publicly expressed reasoning was to allow the defendant to resume operations, being more concerned about maintaining the economy, especially of that of the defendant. Testing practices were corrupted and scandalized, with other problems flagged by the auditor. And to this date, Governor Herbert has no intention of shutting down Utah again. and instead is blaming Utahns, businesses, and schools when outbreaks occur. Notice the church is not included in that. As predicted for Governor Herbert's and Lieutenant Governor Cox's failure. Utah's new cases are almost 100,000. Expected today to surpass it, which will place Utah on the national presses. Oh, it's an apostrophe. Actually, no apostrophe S because it's presses next level color code. Utah has almost tested 1 million, which after almost, I think they actually have now. Yep, we've now tested 1 million. Thank God. Let's see, has now tested over 1 million, which after almost 8 months is almost only 1/3 of Utah's population. The number of unnecessary Utah dead as of reporting on, instead of 18 July, we'll make it 23 October, or October, not July. Well, actually, we need to make it 22. 22 October was 563, with a red level weekly percentage of 16%. Yeah, weekly. All right, on 1 April 2018, the defendant held their first general conference with the newly designated Russell CEO. I think, is this new? I think this is new. Yes. Here we go. Here's where you should have skipped ahead. On 1 April 2018, the defendant held their first general conference with the newly designated CEO, Russell M. Nelson, who declared the construction of a new temple, and this is in quotes, in a major city yet to be determined in Russia. Russia is an enemy to the United States and has been at war with America despite America's passive response. It is Russia's end goal to destroy America and leave it in ruins, as Putin blames America and Mitt Romney for their interference in Russia's 2011 and 2012 elections. No one does business with Russia unless one is willing to criminally corrupt themselves with Russia. Corrupt themselves. What Russia calls compromat. Russia compromises all who want to do business and thereby owning such persons, extorting them to do the will of Russia. In December 2017, Senator Orrin Hatch rushes through the Republican Senate his, in quotes, tax bill, fraudulently claiming it was for the poor. As we know, it was for the rich and big corporations such as the defendant, of whom Hatch is a Mormon and thus compromised to. In May 2018, Max Roth of Fox 13 News Utah exposed the defendant, starting up brand new LLC investment corporations as a result of the 2017 tax bill, of which were laundering $32 billion into the stock market. That April 2018 General Conference, Russell M. Nelson also took away the high priest office, sending all current high priests into the elders' quorums. To be grandfathered out. Only church leadership are to be made high priests from then on. Also, in that same conference, Nelson also stopped the home teaching program, which is not only for religious instruction for Mormons, but to be used as a communication hotline in case of emergencies, like, pay attention, a major windstorm, earthquake of 5.7 magnitude, power outage, or viral pandemic. Oh man. And so now here we are, a viral pandemic, which the plaintiff has exposed the defendant for their failure to protect Mormons and are knowingly exposing all of us to the virus and refusing to shut down their whole operations, making money over human life, just as Putin would want. The plaintiff has also exposed the defendant's laundering of PPE during this pandemic, donating PPE to Shanghai, announcing in April 2020 a new Shanghai temple, then Governor Herbert ordering PPE from Shanghai. Oh man, though it was confiscated by the federal government at the Salt Lake Airport, which was forced to open after the Salt Lake Airport director, who refused to open it, I probably, no, this was before, wasn't it? Or was it? Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, let's check. All right. Let's see. Because that was the week of the 15th, and so yes, he did get it prior to, or tried to get it prior to, wasn't it? It was in April. Yeah, April 6th was, yeah, and the 15th they purchased it from, okay, so yeah, we have to delete that. I need to go get my laundry here. No. Okay. At the Salt Lake Airport. Alright, so Russia is watching this case. As the plaintiff attaches evidence of online links from Russia, that was in the earlier video this morning. You can also see it there. Identified as RU, showing Russia knows about the plaintiff's previous case. This again is how Russia operates to compromise those who want to do business with them. QAnon is spreading misinformation and disinformation about space aliens on Earth who worship Satan and commit pedophilia. QAnon is backed by Russia. The defendant is in their religious theology believe Mormons come from outer space, have Lucifer's inverted pentagram on the Nauvoo, Salt Lake, and Logan temples, as well as the Eagle Gate, and have had 300 complaints from former Boy Scouts who were sexually assaulted as Boy Scouts, of which the defendant was the primary supplier of money, boys, and scoutmasters to the Boy Scouts. To the Boy Scouts of America, as the defendant was also included in those complaints, and many other complaints of sexually assaulted children, even of the CEO's own daughter and her husband back in the 80s in their home in Bountiful, being accused of satanic pedophilia. If Nelson failed, I should put fails. If Nelson fails to do Putin's bidding, Putin will merely order QAnon to direct their misinformation and disinformation onto the defendant. This is why the defendant is willfully murdering Mormons and Utahns, as Utah surpasses 100,000 infected Utahns today. This is treason by the defendant and by Judge Jenkins for defending the defendant. The defendant is a RICO, corrupt corporation using religion as a front for their operations. The defendant is committing treason against the United States of America by being compromised by a foreign enemy to do their bidding. The defendant is doing the bidding of a warring foreign enemy against the United States of America, and thus committing war crimes. And Judge Waddups has already committed treason against the United States of America to protect the traitorous defendant, and now Judge Jenkins, by causing delays in this case, by not recusing himself, and his dismissing the plaintiff's legitimate complaint, is likewise committing an act of treason against the United States of America during a time of war. And so I think I'm going to put Governor Herbert changing direction in here before that last paragraph. I cannot talk for extended periods of time. I also need to put in Stay Strong Utah as a white supremacist term referring to survival of the fittest. And then herd immunity I need to put in here. So that's pretty much it. And like I said, I have to make these corrections or additions, and then email it first, and then I'll upload the video for you guys. So it's too bad the thumbnails can't be GIFs. I was able to combine it all into the one paragraph for you. I did add, though, talking about the church, Nelson taking away the high priest's office, I added something to the effect of, which is in Mormon theology necessary for the highest glory in the Mormon afterlife. So here's the sentence for you, since I haven't submitted this yet. Governor Herbert did an excellent job in preparing for the potential arrival of the virus, but then the defendant got served by the plaintiff in 219 CV00711. CV, yeah, okay. Thereafter, Governor Herbert served the interests of the defendant and not Utahns, and which likewise jeopardized the plaintiff's life. Allowing the defendant to continue to operate and make money at the expense of Utahns' lives is now the intent of the governor's office. The governor's latest slogan posted on the Utah coronavirus website is "Stay Strong, Utah," in quotes, which is a white supremacist term referring to the Darwinian term of survival of the fittest. Governor Herbert is using the national executive's treatment for the virus called herd immunity, which knowingly will result in many deaths by those who are weak and not the fittest. So that reference back to the Black Lives Matter protest, calling them domestic terrorists? Yeah. Just called out Governor Herbert as a white supremacist in order to defend the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. All right.